Able to join us now is Alon Pinkas, who is a former advisor to two Israeli prime ministers. Good afternoon, Alon. Thanks for talking to us again on GB News. What's your thinking? Do you think Benjamin Netanyahu is getting a little bit nervous about mounting this invasion because we are seeing this, slow trickle of hostages now being released?
Well, it would be inhuman and unnatural if he wouldn't become a little bit nervous. I actually think that part of the hostage release, at least the gradual, trickling of hostage release, is meant to stall or even deny Israel the ground operation. But on merit, the ground operation has its opposition. It has its downsides. And it has its costs. So while the hostage situation and the well-being of the hostages is prime amongst the considerations, there's also a political and military consideration preventing a massive, large-scale, broad-scoped operation at this point.
The Times of Israel has been commenting on what's perceived to be maybe a bit of a rift between the political and military masters, and certainly the IDF saying to Netanyahu, look, you've got to move sooner rather than later. You've got 300,000 troops at a real heightened state of readiness, ready to go in.
Well, okay. It begins with a political story here, a political explanation. Both sides have deep and profound mistrust in each other. I mean, the military doesn't trust Mr. Netanyahu and hasn't trusted him for a long time. Yeah. And Mr. Netanyahu thinks the military set him up for failure by failing to prevent the harrowing attack of October 7th. That being established, there now seems, as you indicated very correctly, there now seems to be some kind of a rift or disagreement over the prudence or the cost effectiveness of a ground operation. Now, this has to do, we don't have enough time to go in depth into this. This has to do with Karl von Clausewitz, who basically said the famous axiom of, war is a continuation of politics by other means. Yeah. Meaning that both the Americans and some in the Israeli political echelon are saying, okay, fine, we can destroy, annihilate, obliterate, eradicate, choose the synonym. But what is the political end? The army, the military, on the other hand, feels that, it springs to action. It wants to restore the deterrence that it feels, rightly so, was diminished on the 7th of October. So they're pressing for a ground operation, and they're basically saying to Mr. Netanyahu something very simple. Listen, you've been talking, a big game and bragging a lot about, decimating Hamas. You can't do that. You can't do that, with an F-16 or artillery or precise munitions. You need a ground operation. A ground operation entails costs and consumes a lot of time. But you need to make the decision, because the longer this goes, the less prepared the army, the less valid and relevant and fresh the intelligence.
And on that point, Alon, Benjamin Netanyahu has said earlier, or warned Hezbollah, rather, the prescribed terrorist group operating on Israel's northern border into Lebanon. He's warned them against joining this war. That could be another reason why this offensive hasn't started, couldn't it? Because of the risk of this war becoming this huge regional conflict.
Yeah, exactly right. Look, there's this professional term or distinction between two professional terms here. There is vertical escalation and horizontal escalation. And vertical obviously means increasing the firepower and destruction power in a given arena. Horizontal means that the conflict had expanded to other regions. And the thinking in Israel is, and by the way, shared by U.S. President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, and others, is that if Gaza escalates vertically, then Hezbollah may escalate this horizontally, meaning into Lebanon. Now, what Mr. Netanyahu, look, I have to say, I wish Mr. Netanyahu would not brag and we could do without the bombastic threats. Hezbollah and their handlers in Tehran and Iran know exactly what the cost will be. But, same way that Hamas is holding Gaza hostage, Hezbollah is holding Lebanon hostage.
Yeah, we're just seeing pictures as you speak of the border looking north into Lebanon. It does seem fairly quiet today. No reports of any further artillery or air strikes. But the other aspect to this is going back to Hamas. Who do the negotiators, if that's the right term, deal with? I know that certainly we had the assessor from Gershon Baskin who'd spoken to Hamas about the release of Shalit, that there may be a difficulty of a political and a military wing in Hamas. Right. And the two different masters, who do you deal with to get this situation ratified?
Well, that's an excellent question, because they as they habitually do, they fled. Some are in Qatar, some were in Turkey, but have been evicted from or kicked out, to put it more bluntly, from Turkey. Gershon Baskin is a wonderful guy, but he's an individual. He's not a government, and so the mediators at this point are Qatar, the country of Qatar, which is complicit in what Hamas has been doing, but then again becoming somewhat helpful in mediating. And there is thinking that perhaps the Germans, who also have some history here, the German intelligence, the BND, may get involved. I don't know that for a fact. The Turks may get involved. The Egyptians may get involved. But like you said, they may all come with good faith and the best of intentions, and find that there's no one in authority outside of gangs, thugs, and terrorists who can make decisions.
No command and control of any kind of note. Alon, as ever, thank you very much indeed for your reflections. It's been great to talk to you again. Thanks for your time here on GB News.